customers. And the process is where all the applications have been put out on the internet for incumbent operators to notify the RUS of where broadband service already exists. And he called and he said, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I don't even know how to do this. Have you hired help to go and get this done? We did, and we've spent in excess of $30,000 to show where our area is already served. But many small business guys who are already providing broadband service have to do that. And the problem that I see is all 2,200 applications have been put out on the web for incumbents to go look at and vet through. I think the organization should have done some pre-vetting of all those applications to say, look, these clearly don't meet these criteria, so we need to set those aside. Secondly, I'm still concerned, even though it was mentioned earlier, that we're going to make sure we don't duplicate service and provide money to duplicate service in underserved and unserved areas. I'm not completely convinced that they're going to be able to do that. One reason is the mapping hasn't been done, and as it was said here today, the mapping won't be done until 2011. That's very concerning, and I have some follow-up concerns after the application review process goes forward as to what we're supposed to do to ensure that duplication doesn't occur. So I'm not completely convinced that we're real sure that we're going to keep from doing that.
Okay. Do you feel that you'll have access to the adequate resources to refute applications that plan to service areas already served?
Well, I hope so, although it's expensive, and that goes back to the having to go through all 2,200 applications and see if any of them are in our current service areas. You know, we've launched, we've built thousands of miles of fiber optic cable just ourselves in the last 3 years and launched broadband service in more than 100 new communities, mostly very rural, small-town communities. And our take rates and our success has been wonderful, but we're trying to go out here with private capital and do that, and we want to make sure that we make sure we tell the government that those areas are already served. We provide, as I mentioned in my testimony, that data to the FCC every year. And I think on that Form 477 that we fill out, I think these agencies could use that data to pre-vet these applications.
You had mentioned that it cost approximately your company specifically $50,000 to apply within this process,
right?
And with no guarantees, you know.
That's right.
Going forward, has the industry done any estimates of, you know, if that's $50,000 for just with your organization, your business, has any across the industry any projections of what the cost has been, the investment for applications? Because I assume there's a lot of applications that I don't know what percentage of applications will in the final day will be funded.
We have not, but I would think that you could extrapolate that number pretty easily across the miles of last mile cable and fiber optic cable to be built like ours. Of that 50,000, about 2/3 of that was in the mapping and design process that had to be completed prior to filing your application. That kind of goes back to the suggestion of, why don't you say our design will be this type of design, and here's a sample, and here's exactly what it'll look like, and once granted, then we'll go and design specifically that community. I think to a certain extent, that process favors wireless providers over wireline providers, because a wireless distribution system is much easier to design. You just pick points on a map of where you're going to put towers. I may be oversimplifying a bit, but points on a map where towers are going to go and how you're going to communicate between those towers. But the broadband speeds that we currently offer and will offer up to 100 megabits per second are far and away in excess of what wireless communications can provide. So while the process is supposed to be tech neutral, it doesn't seem to be when in the application process.
My final question is, do your members plan on hiring more people if they're successful in obtaining stimulus dollars, or will the workload be manageable at the current staffing levels?
No, absolutely we'll hire additional people, and that's I think what the beauty of this program does is not only does it provide economic advantages to these rural communities that we're going to provide, but also just in amongst our company, we've hired hundreds more people over the last 3 years as we have developed our broadband infrastructure in our current operations. So these systems will do the same thing as we've done in our past operations.
Just to follow up, then, are there folks out there with the skills available that I'm not sure what different type of positions you'll need, but, I mean, are there people there, the qualified workforce to hire?
You know, it's interesting. In a lot of cases, we look kind of for twofold people. One, technicians that are field-based people that do installation work and maintenance work on broadband networks, and that is a little tougher to find, although we're working with community colleges and other institutions to help train that workforce. So far, that's good. On the flip side, we use customer support personnel, and we're finding, you know, we operate our call center in Sikeston, Missouri, so it's a small community, rural community, and I worried about that when we established that call center there. But we've been pleasantly surprised that the abundance of people that can work on computers and know computer-related tasks and that sort of thing, particularly younger people who have been trained and schools are doing a good job with that. So we've had a very, that's been a good opportunity for us, and it has worked out well for us, actually.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Mr. Gleason, in August 2009, the USDA releases a report that basically